Failure. The very word makes most people uncomfortable. It creates fear in the mind, doubt in the heart, and hesitation in action. Society has trained people to believe that failure is a mark of weakness, a signal that a person is not capable, not talented, or not worthy of success. But that belief is one of the greatest illusions ever accepted by the human mind. The truth is far more powerful. Failure is not the enemy of success. Failure is the workshop where success is built. Every person who has ever achieved something extraordinary walked through a long corridor of defeat before reaching victory. The difference between those who rise and those who disappear is not talent, intelligence, or luck. The difference is how they interpret failure. Most people experience failure and immediately label it as the end. They close the door on their dreams because they believe the outcome defines their ability. But the rare individual sees something completely different. Where others see defeat, they see information. Where others see rejection, they see direction. Where others see an ending, they see instruction. Failure is not a verdict. It is feedback. Think about the moment when people quit. It rarely happens after the first attempt. It rarely happens after the second struggle. The breaking point usually appears after repeated setbacks, when the mind begins to whisper dangerous thoughts. Maybe this isn't meant for me. Maybe I am not capable. Maybe success belongs to someone else. These whispers destroy more dreams than any obstacle ever could. But those who build greatness have trained their minds to reject those whispers. They understand something the average person never discovers. Every failure contains a hidden advantage. Every setback carries a lesson powerful enough to transform the next attempt. But that lesson only reveals itself to the person who refuses to walk away. When steel is placed in fire, it does not become weaker, it becomes stronger. The heat does not destroy it. The heat refines it. Failure works the same way. It burns away arrogance. It burns away illusion. It burns away the false belief that success comes easily. And what remains is something far more valuable: resilience. Resilience is the invisible force that separates ordinary individuals from extraordinary ones. It is the ability to stand again after disappointment, to move forward after rejection, and to try again when the world expects you to stop. History proves this truth again and again. Every achievement that appears effortless from the outside is built on countless unseen failures. The world celebrates the final victory, but ignores the long nights of doubt, frustration, and persistence that made that victory possible. Success is never a straight road. It is a winding path filled with obstacles designed to test the strength of your desire. Many people claim they want success, but the moment failure appears, their commitment collapses. Their dreams were never destroyed by failure. They were destroyed by a lack of persistence. Because persistence is the real secret. Persistence transforms failure into progress. Persistence converts mistakes into mastery. Persistence turns rejection into redirection. When a person decides that quitting is not an option, failure loses its power. It becomes nothing more than a temporary event. The strongest individuals understand that failure is simply part of the process. They do not waste energy complaining about it. They do not allow it to define their identity. Instead, they ask a powerful question: what is this experience trying to teach me? This question changes everything, because the moment you search for the lesson inside defeat, failure stops being an obstacle and starts becoming a guide. Every mistake becomes a map pointing toward improvement. Every disappointment becomes a signal that adjustment is needed. Every setback becomes preparation for a greater opportunity. The truth about failure is rarely discussed because it is uncomfortable. People prefer the fantasy that success arrives easily, that greatness appears overnight, and that winners are somehow different from everyone else. But the real story is far more demanding. Success belongs to those who develop an unbreakable relationship with persistence. It belongs to those who refuse to surrender their vision when circumstances become difficult. And here is the ultimate truth that many never realize. Failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is part of success. It is the training ground where discipline is forged. It is the testing ground where determination is strengthened. It is the classroom where the mind learns the strategies necessary for victory. Those who fear failure remain trapped in mediocrity. But those who embrace failure as a teacher unlock a power that most people never experience: the power to rise again. So the next time life delivers a setback, remember this truth. You are not being defeated. You are being prepared. Prepared to grow stronger. Prepared to think wiser. Prepared to move closer to the success that only persistence can create. Because the greatest achievements in history were not built by people who avoided failure. Were built by people who refused to let failure stop them. And when you finally understand this truth, failure will never frighten you again. It will become the very force that drives you forward. Failure is not the enemy. It is the hidden teacher standing in the shadows of every great victory. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid it, fearing it, running from it, as if failure were some kind of disease that destroys potential. But the truth is far more powerful and far more uncomfortable. Failure is not sent to destroy you. Failure is sent to prepare you. It arrives like a storm, shaking your confidence, questioning your strength, testing the depth of your desire. And in that storm, something important is revealed. The world often praises success, celebrates the winners, applauds the champions, but very few speak honestly about the battlefield that exists before those victories are ever seen. That battlefield is filled with mistakes, rejection, disappointment, and long nights of doubt. The difference between those who rise and those who disappear is not intelligence, not talent, not even opportunity. The difference is the ability to listen when failure begins to teach. Most people encounter failure once or twice and immediately assume it is a signal to stop. They interpret difficulty as a warning sign that the path is wrong. Their minds begin to whisper that success belongs only to someone else, someone smarter, someone luckier, someone more gifted. Those whispers slowly become beliefs, and those beliefs quietly bury the dreams that once burned with excitement. Yet there are individuals who hear those same whispers and refuse to accept them. They look directly at defeat and ask a different question. Instead of asking why something went wrong, they ask what can be learned. That single change in thinking transforms failure from an enemy into an instructor. Every mistake begins to carry information. Every setback begins to reveal direction. What once looked like an obstacle becomes a map guiding the next step forward. There is a powerful truth hidden inside every defeat. It is a truth that many never discover because they abandon the journey too early. Within every failure lies the seed of an equal advantage waiting to be recognized and cultivated. But that seed does not reveal itself to the impatient or the discouraged. It reveals itself only to the persistent mind that continues to search for meaning inside struggle. When an individual chooses to remain standing after disappointment, the mind begins to sharpen, awareness increases, weak strategies are replaced with stronger ones. The person who once stumbled begins to move with greater precision and greater wisdom. Consider the nature of strength. No piece of steel becomes powerful without first facing intense heat. The fire does not exist to destroy the steel. The fire exists to refine it, to remove the impurities that weaken its structure. In the same way, failure burns away illusions. It burns away arrogance, impatience, and careless thinking. What remains after those illusions disappear is something far more valuable. Discipline begins to form. Determination begins to grow. The individual becomes less interested in comfort and more committed to progress. Those who eventually rise to extraordinary heights do not possess some mysterious gift that others lack. Their power comes from a mindset that interprets failure differently. Where others see humiliation, they see education. Where others see rejection, they see redirection. Where others feel discouraged, they feel challenged. They understand that every difficult experience is strengthening the muscles of persistence. Each attempt adds another layer of skill. Each disappointment removes another weakness. Over time, these small improvements compound until the person who once struggled becomes nearly unstoppable. Failure has a way of stripping away the false confidence that often exists in the early stages of ambition. At the beginning, enthusiasm is high, motivation feels endless, and the dream appears simple. But reality soon begins to test that excitement. The road becomes steep. Obstacles appear. Unexpected problems demand solutions. In those moments, many people lose their courage. They interpret hardship as evidence that the dream was unrealistic. Yet the truth is that hardship is part of the process that transforms an idea into achievement. Every challenge forces the mind to grow stronger and more creative. There is a quiet power that develops in those who repeatedly face failure without surrendering. Their confidence begins to shift from fragile optimism to unshakable belief. They no longer depend on easy victories to feel capable. They understand that progress is often hidden inside temporary defeat. This understanding creates emotional strength. The opinions of critics lose their influence. Doubt loses its authority. The individual becomes guided by vision rather than fear. As the lessons accumulate, something remarkable begins to happen. The person who once feared failure now welcomes it as a source of insight. Each setback becomes an opportunity to refine strategy and sharpen discipline. The mind begins to operate with clarity and patience. Instead of reacting emotionally to problems, the individual analyzes them, extracts the lesson, and moves forward with greater awareness. Many people spend years waiting for perfect conditions before they act. They wait for confidence, approval, certainty. But those conditions rarely appear. True confidence is not created before failure. It is built through failure. Every attempt that ends in disappointment strengthens the ability to try again. The fear of losing power slowly fades because experience proves that defeat is temporary. What once felt like a crushing blow becomes simply another step in the process of mastery. Persistence transforms failure into fuel. The more resistance encountered, the more determination develops. Instead of weakening the spirit, difficulty begins to energize it. The individual starts to recognize a pattern. Every time progress feels impossible, a breakthrough is often waiting just beyond the moment when most people decide to quit. Those who endure long enough discover opportunities that remain invisible to the impatient. Failure quietly trains the mind to think differently. It replaces careless enthusiasm with focused intention. It replaces wishful thinking with deliberate action. The individual learns to evaluate choices, to observe patterns, to adjust strategies without losing belief in the goal. This combination of patience and persistence forms the foundation upon which every major achievement is built. What appears to outsiders as sudden success is almost always the result of countless invisible lessons learned through failure. The individual who stands confidently today is often the same person who once faced repeated rejection and doubt. Each defeat carved deeper determination into their character. Each disappointment forced them to develop greater discipline. Over time, the accumulation of those lessons created a powerful inner certainty that no obstacle could permanently defeat them. The world has sold a beautiful lie about success, and millions of people believe it without ever questioning it. From childhood, society paints a picture that success is quick, glamorous, and almost effortless. It is presented as a shining moment on a stage, a trophy lifted in victory, applause echoing from the crowd. What people rarely see is the long, silent road that leads to that moment. They see the spotlight, but not the darkness that existed before it. They see the celebration, but not the countless failures that shaped it. This illusion is powerful because it convinces ordinary minds that success belongs only to a special few who somehow got lucky. The truth is far less comfortable, but far more empowering. Success is not a moment, it is a process. It is built in silence, far away from applause and recognition. It grows slowly in the hidden hours when no one is watching, when effort feels lonely, and when progress seems invisible. Society rarely speaks about those hours because they do not look impressive. They are filled with struggle, repeated attempts, mistakes, and frustration. Yet those very moments are where real success begins to take shape. Many people start their journey with enthusiasm because the dream feels exciting. They imagine the rewards, the respect, the freedom, the sense of achievement. But the moment they collide with the reality of hard work and repeated setbacks, something changes inside them. Doubt begins to grow. The mind starts comparing the dream with the difficulty of the path. And because society never prepared them for that difficulty, they assume something must be wrong. They begin to believe they are not talented enough, not lucky enough, not capable enough. This belief quietly destroys ambition. The lie of easy success creates unrealistic expectations. When people expect quick victories, they interpret slow progress as failure. When they expect a smooth path, they interpret obstacles as signs to quit. The mind becomes impatient, searching for shortcuts instead of building strength. Many individuals abandon their goals not because the dream was impossible, but because they misunderstood the journey required to achieve it. Real success demands a different mindset. It requires a willingness to work in obscurity for long periods of time. It requires faith during moments when results are not yet visible. The greatest builders of achievement understand something that society rarely teaches. They know that progress often feels invisible in the beginning. Seeds do not become trees overnight. Roots grow beneath the surface long before branches appear. The same principle applies to personal achievement. The early stages of success often feel slow and frustrating. Efforts seem to produce little reward. The mind wonders if the work is worth it. But these early struggles are not wasted energy. They are strengthening the foundation. They are teaching discipline, patience, and resilience. Without those qualities, success would collapse under its own weight. Society celebrates outcomes, but it rarely celebrates preparation. People admire the finished result, but ignore the countless hours that shaped it. This creates a dangerous illusion where individuals believe that success appears suddenly. They assume that winners simply discovered the right opportunity or possessed natural ability that others lack. But behind every visible achievement lies a long history of persistence and repeated effort. Another powerful deception society spreads is the idea that success happens quickly for the right person. This belief encourages impatience. When results do not appear immediately, many individuals lose motivation. They begin searching for new paths, new strategies, new dreams. Their energy becomes scattered. Instead of developing mastery in one direction, they constantly restart the journey somewhere else. Those who eventually achieve greatness understand the importance of sustained focus. They know that mastery requires time. Skill develops through repetition. Confidence grows through experience. Wisdom emerges from mistakes. None of these qualities can be rushed. They are earned through consistent action over long periods of effort. The lie of instant success also hides another important truth. Success requires sacrifice. Every meaningful goal demands that something else be given up. Comfort must be exchanged for discipline. Distraction must be replaced with concentration. Easy entertainment must be sacrificed for productive effort. These sacrifices are rarely visible to the outside world, but they are essential for progress. Many people want the rewards of success without accepting the price required to obtain it. They want recognition without preparation. They want results without patience. When reality demands effort and persistence, enthusiasm begins to fade. The dream slowly loses its power because the individual was never prepared for the real cost of achievement. Those who rise above the illusion understand that the journey itself transforms them. Success is not simply about reaching a goal. It is about becoming the type of person capable of achieving that goal. Discipline strengthens the mind. Persistence strengthens character. Each challenge faced and overcome adds another layer of inner power. Over time, the individual begins to see the truth that society failed to reveal. The struggle itself is shaping the strength required for success. The delays are building patience. The obstacles are developing creativity. The failures are sharpening judgment. What once felt like barriers begin to reveal themselves as preparation. This realization changes everything. The person who once feared slow progress now understands its purpose. Instead of rushing the process, they commit to it. They recognize that every small improvement is part of a much larger transformation. The journey stops feeling like a burden and begins to feel like a powerful training ground. The world may continue celebrating the final moment of victory, but the wise individual understands that victory was decided long before that moment ever arrived. It was decided in the quiet mornings of discipline, in the late nights of effort, in the countless attempts that ended in mistakes but produced valuable lessons. Those unseen moments carry far more power than the applause that eventually follows. When the illusion disappears, a deeper truth becomes clear. Success was never meant to be easy. It was meant to shape strength, test persistence, and reveal the individuals who are willing to grow beyond their limitations. The path may be demanding, but within that challenge lies the opportunity to build something far greater than external success. It creates a mind that refuses to surrender and a spirit that continues moving forward regardless of how difficult the journey becomes. Most people do not quit at the beginning of the journey. They quit at the exact moment when success is closest. It happens quietly, almost invisibly, in the space between exhaustion and breakthrough. At first, dream feels powerful and alive. The mind is filled with excitement. The vision of success burns brightly, and the first steps feel bold and courageous. Energy is high, confidence is strong, and the belief in the future seems unshakable. But time has a way of testing every ambition. The road begins to stretch longer than expected. Progress appears slower than imagined. Obstacles begin to appear one after another. And the excitement that once felt unstoppable slowly begins to weaken. This is the moment where the real test begins. Many people believe the hardest part of any journey is getting started. In reality, the hardest part is continuing when the initial excitement fades away. Motivation is powerful in the beginning because everything feels new and inspiring. The dream looks clear and achievable. But after repeated effort, when results are still uncertain and recognition is nowhere to be seen, the mind begins to question the decision to continue. Doubt quietly enters the conversation. The mind starts whispering dangerous questions. Is this effort worth it? Is the goal even possible? What if all this work leads nowhere? These questions slowly weaken determination. They begin to shift focus away from the dream and toward the difficulty of the path. The person who once felt unstoppable now feels tired, uncertain, and alone in the pursuit. This stage of the journey is where the majority quietly surrender. Not because they lack ability, not because they lack intelligence, but because they misunderstand the nature of progress. They expect improvement to appear quickly, and when results take longer than anticipated, they interpret the delay as failure. They begin to believe they are moving in the wrong direction. The mind becomes impatient, searching for easier roads and faster rewards. Yet, the strange truth of achievement is that progress is rarely visible at the moment when effort feels the heaviest. Growth often happens beneath the surface where it cannot be seen immediately. Just as roots grow deep into the ground before a tree rises above the soil, personal development happens quietly before success becomes visible. The individual may feel stuck, but the mind is learning. Strategies are improving. Discipline is strengthening. Every attempt, even those that seem unsuccessful, is shaping the ability to succeed later. The problem is that most people stop before these invisible improvements have time to produce visible results. Persistence is the bridge that carries a person across this dangerous moment. Those who eventually achieve remarkable success are not immune to doubt. They feel the same exhaustion, the same frustration, the same temptation to quit. The difference lies in their response to these feelings. Instead of accepting doubt as a signal to stop, they interpret it as a signal to strengthen their resolve. They understand that difficulty is not a sign of failure. It is evidence that they are moving beyond the comfort zone where real growth takes place. Every ambitious goal eventually leads to a point where continuing feels unreasonable. The work becomes demanding, progress seems slow, and the reward appears distant. This is the exact point where most people decide the dream was unrealistic. They step away quietly, convincing themselves that the goal was never meant for them. What they fail to realize is that many of the greatest achievements in history were built just beyond this moment of discouragement. The final breakthrough often waits on the other side of persistence, just beyond the place where ordinary determination runs out. There is a powerful transformation that occurs when a person refuses to quit during these moments. The mind begins to develop resilience. Confidence stops depending on immediate success and begins to rely on inner belief. The individual learns to endure discomfort without surrendering ambition. This ability creates a psychological advantage that few people ever develop. Once someone has passed through this stage of doubt and continued moving forward, their relationship with effort changes forever. Obstacles no longer appear as reasons to retreat. They become challenges to overcome. Each difficult experience strengthens the belief that perseverance will eventually reveal a solution. Time becomes an ally rather than an enemy. The individual who continues despite slow progress begins to accumulate knowledge and experience that others abandoned too early. Skills improve, judgment becomes sharper, and confidence becomes rooted in experience rather than temporary motivation. Gradually, the results that once seemed impossible begin to appear. Opportunities emerge that were invisible before. The discipline developed through persistence creates momentum. What once felt like an endless struggle transforms into steady advancement. The irony is that the same moment that convinces most people to quit is often the moment when their effort was about to produce results. Success frequently hides behind the final test of determination. Those who step away never discover how close they truly were. Greatness is rarely achieved by those who move quickly. It is achieved by those who refuse to stop moving at all. The difference between ordinary outcomes and extraordinary achievements often comes down to one simple decision made during a difficult moment. The decision to take one more step when the mind insists on stopping. The decision to try one more time when exhaustion feels overwhelming. The decision to hold on to the vision when doubt attempts to erase it. In that quiet moment of choice, the future begins to change. The person who continues forward separates themselves from the majority who turn back. Each additional step deepens their strength and sharpens their determination. The journey becomes less about reaching a destination and more about becoming the type of individual who cannot be defeated by temporary setbacks. What appears to outsiders as remarkable persistence is simply the refusal to surrender during the moment when surrender feels easiest. That single decision, repeated again and again, creates a momentum that carries the individual closer and closer to the outcome they once imagined only as a distant possibility. Failure is the mirror that reveals who you truly are when the world stops applauding. When everything is going well, when victories are easy and progress feels smooth, almost anyone can appear confident, strong, and determined. Success in those moments is comfortable. It requires very little emotional courage, but the moment failure arrives, everything changes. The noise of encouragement disappears, certainty fades, and the mind is forced to face a question that cannot be avoided. What kind of person will you be when things stop working in your favor? Failure strips away the illusions people hide behind. Titles, praise, and external recognition lose their power when circumstances become difficult. What remains is character. It becomes impossible to pretend, impossible to hide weaknesses behind temporary success. The individual is left alone with their mindset, their discipline, and the strength of their determination. In that moment, the true identity of a person begins to appear. Many individuals build their confidence on fragile foundations. As long as results are positive, they feel capable. As long as others approve, they feel motivated. But when failure interrupts the flow of success, that fragile confidence begins to collapse. Doubt spreads quickly through the mind, and the belief in one's ability begins to weaken. The person who once felt unstoppable suddenly feels uncertain and exposed. The fear of being judged, the fear of being wrong, the fear of not being good enough begins to dominate their thoughts. This is the moment when identity is tested. Some people respond to failure by retreating. They step away from challenges, searching for easier paths where the risk of embarrassment is smaller. They protect their pride by lowering their ambitions. Slowly, their goals shrink to match the level of comfort they are willing to accept. The dream that once inspired them becomes distant, replaced by safer expectations and quieter hopes. Others respond very differently. Instead of retreating, they confront the discomfort directly. They examine their mistakes with honesty rather than denial. They allow failure to expose their weaknesses because they understand that awareness is the first step toward improvement. This mindset requires courage. It demands humility and patience. But it also unlocks a powerful advantage that most people never experience. Failure reveals the gaps between intention and preparation. It shows where discipline is weak, where knowledge is incomplete, and where effort must increase. These revelations are not pleasant, but they are incredibly valuable. They provide the information needed to grow stronger. The person who accepts these lessons begins to transform in ways that success alone could never produce. Comfort rarely creates strength. It encourages satisfaction with the present level of ability. Failure does the opposite, disrupts comfort and demands adaptation. It forces the mind to search for better strategies and stronger habits. Over time, this process builds resilience and self-awareness. The individual becomes less concerned with protecting their ego and more committed to developing their potential. There is a quiet honesty that emerges when failure becomes a teacher instead of an enemy. The individual stops pretending that progress should be easy. They begin to understand that growth often requires discomfort and repeated effort. Instead of blaming circumstances or other people, they take responsibility for improvement. This shift in thinking creates a powerful sense of control over the future. Every great achievement requires a transformation of identity. A person cannot expect to achieve extraordinary results while maintaining ordinary habits and attitudes. Failure accelerates this transformation by exposing the gap between who a person is and who they must become. Each challenge reveals another layer of potential waiting to be developed. As this process continues, confidence begins to change its foundation. Instead of relying on constant success, Confidence grows from the knowledge that setbacks can be overcome. The individual learns that disappointment does not destroy capability. Each time failure is faced and survived, belief becomes stronger and more stable. The fear of temporary defeat begins to lose its power. Criticism also loses much of its influence during this transformation. When a person understands their own weaknesses and actively works to improve them, outside opinions become less intimidating. The focus shifts away from seeking approval and toward pursuing growth. The individual becomes guided by purpose rather than by the desire to avoid judgment. Failure also reveals the depth of a person's commitment. Many people claim they want success, but their actions reveal a different priority when difficulty appears. The dream fades quickly when effort becomes demanding, but those who continue working despite disappointment demonstrate a level of dedication that cannot be faked. Their identity becomes connected to perseverance. Over time, the repeated experience of facing challenges develops a powerful inner stability. The individual begins to trust their ability to adapt and learn. Mistakes no longer feel like threats to identity. They become part of the process of refinement. This mindset allows continuous improvement without the constant fear of embarrassment or defeat. The person who once feared failure now recognizes its role in shaping strength. Each setback becomes an opportunity to develop discipline, creativity, and resilience. The identity that emerges from this process is far more durable than the fragile confidence that existed before. Instead of being defined by outcomes, the individual becomes defined by character. Persistence replaces hesitation. Responsibility replaces excuses. Determination replaces doubt. These qualities do not appear instantly. They are forged through repeated encounters with difficulty and the decision to continue growing despite discomfort. The journey through failure gradually reveals a deeper understanding of personal capability. Hidden reserves of courage and creativity begin to surface. The individual realizes that limitations once believed to be permanent were often temporary barriers created by fear or inexperience. With each challenge faced, the sense of possibility expands. What began as painful setbacks gradually transforms into a powerful process of self-discovery. The person who walks through failure with awareness and determination does not simply improve their skills, they reshape their identity. Strength replaces uncertainty, clarity replaces confusion, and resilience becomes a permanent part of their character. Every defeat arrives carrying something invisible, something most people never stop long enough to discover. What appears at first as loss, disappointment, or rejection often hides a force of equal power waiting to be uncovered. The majority only see the surface of defeat. They feel the sting of failure. They hear the criticism. They experience the frustration of effort that did not produce the expected result. In that emotional storm, the mind becomes blinded by discouragement. It assumes the experience has nothing valuable to offer. Beneath that surface reaction lies a truth that has shaped every meaningful achievement in human history. Defeat is not empty. It is loaded with information, insight, and correction. It carries the exact lessons needed to strengthen the next attempt. But those lessons are never obvious at the moment defeat occurs. They are hidden behind disappointment, waiting for the individual who is willing to search for them. This is where most people lose the opportunity. They allow emotion to dominate reason. Instead of examining what happened, they retreat from the experience altogether. The rare individual reacts differently. When defeat appears, they pause long enough to analyze it. They treat the experience as valuable evidence rather than as a personal insult. Every result becomes a source of knowledge. They ask questions others refuse to ask. What went wrong? What weakness was exposed? What can be improved before the next attempt? Through this process, defeat becomes an instructor rather than an obstacle. Many people assume that successful individuals move from victory to victory without interruption. The reality is far more demanding. Those who reach remarkable heights often accumulate more defeats than anyone else. The difference is not the absence of failure, but the ability to transform it into progress. Each mistake becomes a stepping stone. Each rejection becomes a lesson in strategy, discipline, or patience. When an effort fails, it reveals something that success often hides. It exposes flaws in preparation, gaps in knowledge, weaknesses in execution. These revelations are uncomfortable, but they are incredibly valuable. Without them, improvement would remain slow and uncertain. Defeat forces awareness. It shines light on the areas where growth is necessary. The mind that refuses to learn from defeat remains trapped in repetition. The same mistakes appear again and again because they were never examined. But the mind that searches for the seed of advantage begins to evolve quickly. Each experience sharpens judgment. Each attempt becomes more intelligent than the one before it. There is also a deeper transformation that occurs when defeat is understood correctly. Fear begins to lose its grip on the imagination. The individual realizes that failure does not destroy opportunity. It simply redirects effort. The fear that once paralyzed action slowly fades, replaced by curiosity and determination. This shift creates freedom. Instead of avoiding challenges, the person begins to approach them with confidence. They understand that even an unsuccessful attempt will produce valuable insight. Nothing becomes wasted effort because every experience contributes to future strength. Defeat also teaches patience, a quality rarely developed through easy victories. When progress requires repeated attempts, the individual learns to control frustration and maintain focus over longer periods of time. Patience strengthens the ability to endure difficulty without abandoning the goal. It allows consistent effort even when rewards are delayed. Within defeat lies another hidden advantage. It develops resilience. Each time a person stands back up after disappointment, the mind becomes more resistant to discouragement. Emotional strength grows quietly through these experiences. Situations that once felt overwhelming begin to appear manageable. Resilience changes the way challenges are perceived. Instead of viewing obstacles as threats, the individual begins to see them as opportunities to demonstrate growth. Confidence becomes less dependent on external results and more connected to inner strength. Defeat also refines strategy. The first attempt at any goal is rarely perfect. Plans require adjustment. Techniques require improvement. Timing requires awareness. Without the feedback provided by unsuccessful attempts, these adjustments would be impossible. Each setback reveals new information that can be used to approach the problem more effectively. Over time, the accumulation of these lessons creates momentum. What once appeared impossible begins to look achievable. The individual who once struggled blindly now moves with clarity and experience. Their decisions become sharper because they are informed by past mistakes. One of the most powerful realizations occurs when a person begins to recognize the pattern behind defeat and improvement. The initial failure contains the raw material for future success. The lesson extracted from that experience becomes the advantage that leads to the next breakthrough. Those who abandon their efforts too quickly never discover this pattern. They see only the disappointment and walk away before the hidden value reveals itself. The seed remains buried because it was never cultivated through persistence and reflection. But those who continue searching eventually uncover the power concealed within each setback. They recognize that defeat is not a permanent condition. It is a temporary event carrying instructions for the next stage of growth. With every lesson applied, the individual becomes more capable, more prepared, and more resilient. As this understanding deepens, the emotional impact of defeat begins to change. What once felt like a heavy burden begins to feel like part of a powerful process. The individual no longer fears mistakes. They welcome the information contained within them. Each attempt becomes an experiment designed to move closer to mastery. The person who learns to recognize the seed of equal power inside defeat develops a unique advantage. While others retreat from disappointment, they move forward with new knowledge. While others allow failure to weaken their ambition, they allow it to strengthen their strategy and determination. This perspective transforms the entire journey of achievement. Every obstacle becomes meaningful. Every setback becomes part of a larger design that shapes the mind, sharpens ability, and prepares the individual for greater levels of success than they once believed possible. Persistence is the invisible line that separates those who merely dream from those who actually build something powerful in the real world. Every person has dreams. Every mind has moments of inspiration where the future looks exciting and full of possibility. In those moments, it is easy to imagine success. It is easy to talk about goals, plans, and visions. Words come easily when the road ahead is still untouched by difficulty. But the world is not changed by dreams alone. The world is shaped by those who remain standing long after the excitement of the dream begins to fade. At the beginning of every ambition, enthusiasm feels like unlimited energy. A person wakes up with strong motivation and a clear image of what they want to achieve. The mind is confident. The heart is hopeful. Everything seems possible because the reality of effort has not yet begun to test that belief. But soon the journey introduces resistance, progress slows, obstacles appear, mistakes interrupt the flow of effort. What once felt easy begins to demand patience and discipline. This is the point where dreamers and builders begin to separate. The dreamer loves the idea of success but struggles with the process required to achieve it. When difficulties appear, enthusiasm weakens, motivation fades. The dreamer starts searching for reasons why the goal may not be realistic after all. Excuses quietly replace determination. The mind begins to justify retreat by convincing itself that the circumstances were never favorable. The builder thinks differently. The builder understands from the beginning that effort will not always feel exciting. There will be long periods where progress seems invisible. There will be days filled with frustration and moments where quitting feels like relief. Yet the builder continues moving forward despite those feelings. Persistence does not depend on perfect motivation. It depends on commitment. A committed mind continues working even when the emotional excitement disappears. It understands that feelings are temporary, but disciplined action produces lasting results. The builder focuses less on how the journey feels and more on what the journey requires. Many people abandon their goals not because they lack ability, but because they misunderstand the nature of persistence. They expect motivation to carry them through every challenge. When motivation fades, they assume their passion has disappeared. In reality, motivation was never meant to be permanent. It is only the spark that begins the fire. Persistence is the fuel that keeps it burning. The road to meaningful achievement is rarely comfortable. It demands repeated effort in the face of uncertainty. It asks for patience when results take longer than expected. It requires courage when doubt begins to whisper that the effort may be wasted. These moments test the depth of commitment more than any external obstacle. Those who build extraordinary outcomes develop a powerful relationship with persistence. They understand that progress often happens slowly and quietly. Instead of chasing constant excitement, they focus on consistent improvement. Each day becomes an opportunity to move slightly closer to the goal, even if the movement feels small. Small steps, repeated with determination, create powerful momentum. Over time, the individual who refuses to stop begins to accumulate advantages that others never develop. Skills become sharper through practice. Confidence grows through experience. Strategies improve through observation and adjustment. The dreamer often waits for the perfect moment to act again. The builder acts even when conditions are imperfect, while others hesitate. The persistent individual continues experimenting, learning, and improving. This consistent action gradually creates opportunities that appear almost mysterious to outside observers. People often describe successful individuals as lucky, but luck frequently appears where persistence has been present for a long time. The person who continues trying discovers possibilities that remain invisible to those who quit too early. Opportunities often hide behind repeated effort, waiting for the individual who refuses to abandon the search. Persistence also strengthens the mind in ways that comfort never can. Each challenge faced and overcome increases emotional resilience. Difficult situations begin to feel less intimidating. The individual develops confidence, not because everything goes smoothly, but because they have proven to themselves that obstacles can be overcome. Over time, persistence transforms identity. The person who once relied on temporary motivation becomes someone guided by discipline and purpose. The goal stops feeling like a distant dream and begins to feel like a responsibility that must be fulfilled. The builder no longer measures progress by immediate results alone. They understand that consistent effort creates long-term transformation. Even when visible success has not yet arrived, the individual knows that each day of persistence is shaping the person capable of achieving that success. This understanding creates quiet determination. Instead of seeking constant reassurance from the outside world, the persistent individual draws confidence from their actions. They trust the process of consistent work and steady improvement. The distance between dreaming and building often appears small at the beginning. Both individuals start with similar ideas and ambitions. But as time passes, persistence widens that distance. The dreamer pauses, hesitates, and eventually stops. The builder continues forward, sometimes slowly, sometimes painfully, but always moving. Years later, the difference becomes obvious. One person still talks about what they once hoped to achieve. The other stands surrounded by the results of disciplined effort and relentless persistence. The journey of persistence is rarely glamorous. It involves quiet mornings of preparation, long hours of focused work, and repeated attempts that may not immediately succeed. Yet within that process lies the power that transforms ambition into reality. Those who embrace persistence discover that determination is stronger than temporary failure. They learn that effort applied consistently can overcome obstacles that once appeared impossible. Every step forward deepens their belief that the goal is not just a dream but a destination that can be reached through unwavering commitment and continued action. The final truth about failure is simple, powerful, and impossible to ignore once it is understood. Failure was never designed to stop you. It was designed to shape you. Every setback you faced, every rejection that challenged your confidence, every moment when the path felt uncertain, was not a sign that your dream was impossible. It was part of